You said the album was coming out on Saturday. It didn't come out. What happened?
I didn't finish.
Hey, welcome back to a brand new video. Now, normally these videos are much more fun with a bouncy intro to get you in the energy for a high effort, high energy HarleyTBS video where I load on you straight facts and information, but sadly Kanye West's album, for which I ruined my sleep schedule, did not release as Kanye promised, and I guess it was kind of expected as a Kanye fan, but sadly that means that we get no hyped intro. So I thought I'd cool it down with a coffee. But before I begin, if you'd like to have your own coffee next to your name whenever you leave a comment, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, and you get one of these 3 coffee icons. It would be highly appreciated. And also, before I begin, so I don't forget, consider subscribing as I'm aiming for 50k by the end of the year, and consider checking out my other social media down below. It would be highly appreciated. My Instagram's almost at 1,000 followers. I'd appreciate if you could check me out there for some photos, like me and my corpse hoodie. I think it's a cool photo. But with that being said, let's get right into it. FiddleaFox, who I'll call Fox from now on because I have no idea how to pronounce their username properly, and I know I'm gonna get as many hate comments as possible for just pronouncing it wrong in the intro, was recently called out as a furry artist who's made a lot of art pieces in the past that have a lot of notoriety for being a terrible person behind the scenes, involving them insulting their fans, making racist comments, and incredibly insensitive comments as a whole that I'm going to cover as we get further through this video, that's led to them losing thousands of followers overnight, and their whole reputation online being absolutely destroyed, with them being ratioed into oblivion on every Twitter post they make, 3,000 to 100, which is a ridiculously high ratio, but obviously I guess that's what you expect when you're in the art community. But now I'm going to go into the evidence and share it all to you in a condensed, concise way. The allegations started when an initial Twitter thread was released with a Google Doc attached, and that Google Doc cited all of this information, showed proof that this was allegedly their account, which I can't access for some reason, which sucks, but also the whole thing shows chat messages from them, and I'll go through them in order of allegation. This Twitter thread starts with many transphobic comments from Fiddle or Fox, with them saying, "I'm sick of trans people making everything about them. I don't know, when I see a trans woman and trans men cry because gay people and lesbians won't sleep with them, I hate them a little bit. I read a perspective that it seemed like a lot of trans women felt they failed as men, not strong enough, etc. So they might as well be a woman, legitimately more afraid of trans women than men. I will always hate trans women more, but that could change if I subjected myself to trans men, and I'm tired of trans people being given so much of a say in stuff." And there's also a whole bunch more of their transphobic comments where they use terms like F-boy and a whole heap of other claims and insensitive comments that would be incredibly disgusting, but obviously for YouTube's sake I can't list them here, so if you'd like to read the Google Doc I will attach it down below. But all of these comments highlight a clear hatred or fear of trans people, which would be transphobic in nature and incredibly disrespectful to a lot of trans people, generalizing them into mainly people that are just not confident in their initial gender or believe that they didn't live up to a role set for them in society, and as such they changed their gender, which isn't how being transgender works, and it's an incredibly insensitive, poor take, lack of research claim that's made by someone that clearly doesn't care about supporting the trans community, with them also saying stuff like F-boy, which is a transphobic slur. But obviously, this is not where it ends, because they've said things like, only black people would treat Popeyes like their little kingdom. Meanwhile, black people are being R-worded and refusing to get it. Being around ghetto black people reminded me why Trump won, saying they don't understand why they'd follow someone anymore that was supporting the BLM movement. And also, quite obviously racist, they said things like, I hate black people. Well, black people just want an excuse to say every is against them. Black people need to wear shock collars or they'll fly into a murderous rage and commit violent, unconsensual relationship acts with people. I'm tired of black people on Twitter, and a lot more. All of these screenshots highlight a clear hatred for people of color from the artist, and very clearly they highlight many incredibly insensitive comments implying that people of color are people that would force themselves upon others in a relationship, romantic pretense, if you know what I mean, and also expressing their distaste towards black people rampantly. A incredibly disgusting and incredibly insensitive behavior that sadly I have to censor for the sake of YouTube once again, but if all of these are true, which they seem to be given the artist's response, which I'll express later, Fox is quite clearly a incredibly discriminatory person that doesn't really care about anyone in this community and is incredibly insensitive. But obviously that isn't where it ends. There's comments of them using transphobic slurs. There's comments of them mocking asexual people. There's comments of them using the homophobic slur, which is incredibly disrespectful. I believe that you shouldn't use that term under any means if you aren't in the LGBTQIA community, as it's not your slur to reclaim. And also, simultaneously, I feel like it highlights the fact that they very clearly don't have good views on that community and seem to be very disrespectful. There's posts of them using the R word rampantly in a discriminatory context, which would highlight them to be quite ableist if these screenshots are real. And finally, they talked about the fact that they find 99% of their people in their fan base repulsive, which is quite a clear way of highlighting the fact that you care about nobody in your community, that you don't love your audience, you don't support your audience, you don't care about your audience, and you're a fake content creator that's only out there for free clout and social validation, which highlights how little their following response means when you put it in perspective. But let's go over that response now. In response to the Google Doc, Fox said, well, I guess this person leaked all of our Discord combos because I warned 2 people he was a massive creep. I may be a huge racist and trans-misogynist, but at least I don't constantly talk about being tiny. Try not to murder at your workplace, buddy, which obviously I've had to censor. And they also say, and yes, those caps are all real. No, I'm not apologizing for stuff I said in private. And they end with quick FAQs. Question, I'm unfollowing you. That's fine, you do you. Question, do you hate people of color? Answer, I hate white people more. Question, you're the most piece of shit in the world. A, that's not true. As mentioned, these responses highlight a clear lack of care to their audience, and quite obviously the response, I may be a massive racist and trans-misogynist, but it's an incredibly awful way to respond to allegations, and rightfully they deserve the ratio of 600 likes to 3.3 thousand quote retweets. Within these tweets, they also admit to all the screenshots being real, and as such I'd argue them to be a undeserving person of forgiveness at this point, and also they refuse to apologize for such distasteful comments. I mean, at least I commend the fact that they aren't making a fake apology to get away with their behavior, but still, this is absolutely pathetic. I can't believe that they would actually admit to this. Yeah, all of this is real. Yeah, I'm an incredibly discriminatory misogynist and transphobe. That's fine, guys. I'm sure you guys aren't gonna hate me, right? I know my racist comments. Ignore them, guys. Push them aside. Don't worry, don't think about them. Like, anyone would ever trust them, support them, or want to be in their community after learning that if they're a decent human being. Furthermore, they continue with some clarifications. They say, people are talking about one specific comment I made about black men and shock collars. Sounds horrible, right? Why the fuck would I say that? I sat down wondering when I said that and why, with no way of going back and looking at the conversation, but I suddenly remembered. The conversation was about Zootopia. As you know, Zootopia uses animal people as stand-ins for people of color, more specifically animals that eat other animals, equal minorities, blacks, Hispanics, etc. I was not a fan of this concept, making black people out to be animals that prey on other animals, when actual animals that prey on other animals are at their core dangerous to herbivores. There's a scrapped concept about electric collars being put on carnivores to control them. That's where the statement comes from. I was mocking the lazy inclusion of race-related issues into a world where it didn't work and was offensive. Now, the fact they show no screenshots for this, the fact this conclusion came out of nowhere, and the fact that this conclusion makes absolutely no sense. Their statements seem incredibly ridiculous and incredibly unrealistic, with most people addressing the fact that they can't even provide screenshots because they claim that they can't even access the Discord chat, which I highly doubt, and it appears that they're using the excuse that they were unfriended or unfriended the other person, but even then you'd still be able to see the chat, and there are multiple ways to get that chat back as long as you have access to the Discord account, so it seems questionable that they'd be hiding this, but giving them the benefit of the doubt, it is totally plausible that this comment in itself was one that was out of context. However, they tried to use this comment in particular to devalue many of the other things they said. However, that does not take away from the fact that they said I hate black people, they used transphobic, homophobic, ableist slurs and more, which are all incredibly disgusting, insensitive, and the fact that they've made claims like being afraid of trans people and more is incredibly disgusting. They continue, look, I said a lot of things in that Discord chat with this person, I accept all the responsibility for saying it, but you have to see why many of those things are cherry-picked. He sent those screen caps to people because he was a creep to me and I got tired of it. Even though I knew he could blackmail me with everything I said, I still wanted people to know how manipulative he was. Where is all of his side of the Discord chat? Why are people using such ill-gotten evidence against me? Honestly, him killing my internet presence is no big deal. My biggest fear was him tracking down my address and killing me. And you're using cherry-picked evidence from someone like that? Did I say terrible things? Depends on who you ask. I'm not going to apologize when I can't even show the context of these situations, and to know friends were conspiring against me instead of just talking to me, using evidence from someone I genuinely started to fear, sheesh. This response is incredibly awful. Their justification that all of their behavior was acceptable or tolerable because the other person in the chat was a bad person too is a ridiculous response, because even if that person was a creep, even if that person had done a lot of terrible things, that does not take away from the fact that you yourself are just as terrible, with some of your incredibly disrespectful comments, some of your incredibly insensitive comments, and some of your incredibly disgusting behavior. There is no justification for anything you said, and most people won't realize the fact that the goalpost has been moved from calling you out from your discriminatory actions, despite the context, has been moved to, well, there's also someone that's bad in the chat too, so why are you not turning back on them as well? Which is an incredibly poor way of trying to turn the backlash back on the person calling you out, while simultaneously trying to devalue the criticism against you through the two-quote fallacy, and using false equivalences to make it seem like your behavior is much better than it actually is. I'd argue everything you've been called out for is still valid and still stands in place where it is, despite the other person in the chat being awful. No matter what the context was, saying, "I hate black people," saying transphobic slurs, homophobic slurs, and ableist slurs are all incredibly disgusting things, and coupling them together with the incredibly insensitive comments, I'd argue no matter what the context was, you're an incredibly disgusting person, and you should hold yourself accountable, apologizing to the people that want to hear the apology, and getting yourself help, because none of this is acceptable or tolerable by any means. But with that being said, my coffee's ran cold. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Feel free to get the coffee icon for yourself by joining the channel and becoming a member. That would be highly appreciated. And consider subscribing down below if you'd like to join the channel, support the channel, and check out some of my other content while helping me reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Obviously, you can also check out my other social media down below, and feel free to support me in any other way you feel fit. I'd love to hear your opinions down below, and with that being said, I'll see you next time. Peace.
Says she wanna rock with it like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with it like me. We can catch a fly. Says she wanna rock with it like me.